Well, the US has now elected its own Vladimir Putin, and he could threaten the world order in a way we've not seen in my lifetime. The truth is, we don't know what Donald Trump's plans are when it comes to foreign policy. But we ought to be worried. We do know he's said that America wouldn't necessarily defend NATO allies if they come under attack. We do know that he's showered President Putin with praise, and of course the Russian leader was the first to congratulate him. And we do know that Trump says the hard-fought nuclear deal with Iran is a disgrace. Finally, we know he doesn't believe in climate change. He says it was invented by the Chinese. Of course, this could all be populist electioneering, and he may not abandon America's international commitments after all. But with someone as unpredictable as Trump, can we be sure? From the day Trump becomes president, it's inevitable that the world will be a more dangerous place.
So putting all these things together, Greg, I mean, possibly the end of NATO, possibly the end of the free trade system as we know it, possibly the end of the international rules-based law and order. Do you think that we are actually facing, as one person said, the end of the West as we know it?
Possibly, if it all happened. Do you think he can deliver all those things you just said? I doubt it very much. I suspect he's not that. I was listening to someone who used to work for him talking about him and saying, look, his concentration level isn't very good. He doesn't last very long on anything. He flips in and out. And you can't do that in government, because if you flip in and out, there's another whole structure and system that carries on without you. So my guess is a lot of what he said he's going to do won't happen.
But I've woken up in some liberal nightmare. You actually said a person as well-educated and informed as you said, do you think it's the end of the Western world as we know it? And someone, well, not that well-educated, you actually said, yes, it could be. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
This is the Western Spring. This is the Western Spring, where nations like Britain, people who have been downtrodden for too long, get an opportunity to vote Brexit, and nations like the US
if you
have
believe
their...
it's the Western Spring...
This is the Western Spring.
OK, and look what happened to the Arab Spring.
Oh, that's
look what it created.
That's like blaming any spring. That's a bit absurd.
Spring is the wrong... Spring is the wrong word, then, to use, isn't it? If you call this... I mean, it's not even... It's not even spring.
The Western liberation.
I would turn that on its head. And I think what my question is the end of the Western Spring? Because everything I've just mentioned happened for a reason. You know, it happened in the last century because of genocide, because of 2 world wars, because of recession that's unprecedented on a global scale. That's why these international trade systems, these international humanitarian and international laws evolved in the first place. So they're there for a reason. It wasn't just some fantastical creation of a crazy lefty.
President-elect Trump's views on NATO actually are absolutely right. Germany is the 3rd biggest economy on the planet. Why shouldn't they pay towards NATO?
Well, while you're mentioning...
Thank you. There's no reason on God's earth that Germany is one of the big... And they don't have to pay a dime or even a fennick or a euro.
Fine, but can you get them to
Precisely. I don't know, but it's not a bad idea to try.
If you wanted to increase German contributions, would you do it by a threatening ultimatum?
Well, they've not even tried now. I think it has a lot of merit.
But doesn't I
won't be voting for you.
I thought he was wanting people. I thought he was wanting people to commit to their 2% of GDP on the defence spending for NATO. Is that right?
Yes.
Why do you think that's unfair?
It's not. No, it's not that I think there's anything wrong with getting people to commit to the spending. It's the way he goes about it. He shows contempt for the whole concept of NATO. He's suggested that he's willing to see a world without NATO, just like he shows contempt for democracy by saying that if the result didn't go his way, he might not respect it. You know, this is somebody who doesn't actually respect the rules that underpin the Western order, the rules of democracy, the rules of collective defence, the rules of international trade. Now, I'm not saying those rules work perfectly for everyone, which is why I asked the question. If we lose those rules, our world isn't going to look the same.
If you look at what happened, I mean, what is coming out of Korea, coming out of South Korea, obviously, says that Trump has already said to them, well, we'll continue to support South Korea. Well, that's not what he said in his campaign. And that's why I say there's a lot of things get said if you're his sort of electioneering, that probably won't happen. But hang on, while we're on Germany, let's look at what Merkel said. Mrs. Merkel said when he got elected.
Germany and America are connected by values: democracy, freedom, respect for the law, and for the dignity of human beings, independently of origin, skin colour, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or political views. On the basis of these values, I'm offering the future President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, close cooperation.
I think that's quite a profound statement. Because what she's really saying is, if you go ahead and carry on doing what you've said you're going to do and behaving like you've said, we're not part of it.
I think it's interesting he's already contacted Angela Merkel and he says he's looking forward to their first meeting and will she wear lederhosen? No, seriously, some commentators say that she looks very grumpy there. She looks permanently grumpy to me. The relationship between them is going to be so fractured because he was so... It was last year, about October last year, where he said that the immigration policy is totally wrong, that German leader Merkel went completely nuts opening the doors. And it cannot possibly continue, and of course that played to his central vote. How on earth that's going to get squared away with Merkel and other European leaders, I don't know. So the only reason I was exploring NATO, and the reason I questioned you over the figures, is presumably if you two think that it's the destruction of the Western world, NATO will somehow...
I didn't say it was
and
the
neither did
destruction
I.
of the
I asked the
Western world.
question.
Well, you asked it, but you were both concurring.
No, but the
Western world is...
Your
just-
interpretation...
Yes, but what you've got to do,
Conspiracy
what she meant by the Western world was the system that we have used for the defence of the West since the war, really.
Right.
And is that going to sustain? Well, he's implied that if Putin walks into certain countries...
Yeah, but why should those countries pay, Greg?
Yeah.
If you're in Latvia or Lithuania, why aren't they paying towards NATO? They don't.
No, but all I'm saying, Nick, is that's the change.
Will you pay for my burglar alert
That's
system?
No, you don't get...
No,
do, you know,
but you won't.
do you know, sometimes I think... We could elect you know. I think you're the...
thinking of it.
I think
I
you're
thought I
the...
ruled that out.
I think
I thought I ruled that out.
apart from the sort of sex stuff, you seem to me the British version of Trump in some ways. You know,
I'm thinking of that.
You know,
We'll see.
you've got a view on everything. Bang, in we go. Let's do it.
What Nick was saying was since Brexit and since Trump, we're going to have this wonderful alliance, a sort of the resurgence of this liberal nation state is going to take hold across the world and led by Mr. Brexit in America and Brexit Britain. And I find that very worrying because I feel that, you know, Donald Trump couldn't even handle his own Twitter account, did much better when it was taken away. And look who he might be bringing back into the White House.
Well, see, Great Britain, America, see how we're hooking up now? We're going rogue and saying, you know, the people are going to take back control of our governance, really. We're going to be able to say, no, we don't want this globalism. And we can't be telling other countries, other nations, how to sweep their porches if we can't sweep our own yet. So we got to take care of what's going on here within our borders, just like you all have done.
I can't remember, who was it who said of Corbyn that they just, the craziest man in the room? Yeah. Well, I mean, I now feel the craziest man in the world is now in the White House, and he's going to bring in the craziest woman in the world.
Remember her famous statement, you know, that she knew about Russia, but
she could see it
from the back room, and you thought, hang on, this doesn't make sense.
And we haven't even started on climate change and the fact that he's going to abandon all those climate change agreements that 195 countries signed up to.
I doubt whether he can.
Maybe he can't do anything, and this is all just like a joke.
Well, we live in hope.
I think you're excused, Afua, because you're of a generation that perhaps didn't know. But you should remember the generation when Gerald Ford was president. The world was at peril because this was a man who couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, and supposedly he was going to bring the world to an end. You know it's not real. When they get in, it doesn't happen, Greg.
He's got Republican Congress, though. This time he can't.
Michelle thinks.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think it will happen.
Michelle, what do you think?
Well, I think he's made some quite sensible statements on defence, I've got to say. So I think this whole NATO thing, as we've already discussed, he wants people to pay their way. It blows my brain that people would argue against that, number one. Number two, he's already come out and said that actually he wants to be more effective and efficient with the military spending because he feels very much that so much money is wasted. I think that's quite a sensible thing. Number three, he's said that he's going to get incredibly tough on ISIS and get a handle on that, and I don't think anyone's managed to at the moment, so I'm interested to see how that's going to play out.
Tell me how he's going to do that.
Well, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't even think he knows what he's going to do.
Bomb them to oblivion.
But what I think he will do,
there's nothing left.
But what I think he will do is take the threat of ISIS incredibly seriously instead of messing around on the edges and all the rest of it like a lot of other people.
So he's going to commit The only way you get rid of ISIS is American ground troops into the Middle East. He's going to do that?
Well, I don't know. I don't even think... one minute he seems to say he will, then he seems to say he won't. I don't know what he's going to do. Do you know what I'd expect him to do? I'd expect him to sit down, surround himself by proper experts, get the proper opinions and views of those people that truly understand this, and then take action, whatever that right action is.
And what makes you think that's going to be different to what Obama has done?
Well, under Obama, we've seen ISIS grow and grow and grow.
But
so
presumably he's
not
taken advice from the same experts. I mean, if Trump is outsourcing it to experts, you're going to get the same outcomes you had with the last president.
He will be. I think Trump will be much more decisive and much more actionable on this kind of scale.
You can't point to foreign policy as one of Obama's highlights, can you?
Well, you certainly can't point to it as one of Trump's respective highlights either.
Well, I mean, goodness me, it's not even moved into the White House yet. But in reality, I don't know how sure-footed Obama's been over the last few years.
Obama inherited a catastrophic
mess. It's always someone else's fault with the left, isn't it? It's always someone else's fault.
Have you forgotten Bush? Have you forgotten what Bush did?
The invasion of Iraq in history will be seen as one of the great disasters of our time, and we're still living with the consequences.
And on that note...
Yeah, it's true.